We got what could be a major shakeup in the world of sports media. CNBC can confirm now that the NFL is in advanced talks to buy a minority stake in ESPN, and in return, ESPN could take control of the NFL network in Red Zone. It would be a very big and bold move that could reshape how fans watch football. CNBC's Alex Sherman is here to break down what is at stake. Alex.
Yeah, Andrew. So I'm reporting this morning that the NFL has had discussions and is currently in talks to buy a 10% stake in ESPN. Now, that is a moving target. Discussions continue. That the end deal, if a deal is done, where, as you mentioned, ESPN would take over NFL Network, NFL Red Zone, some other NFL media assets. The deal could be some combination between equity and cash. But the reason we're talking equity here is that ESPN needs all the cash it can get to buy sports rights, their billion-dollar sports rights. And so these talks for the league to take a stake in ESPN have actually been ongoing for years. This was a story I broke 2 years ago, where ESPN actually had talks with all four major sports leagues. Those talks have really narrowed in on the NFL in the past year or so. And you can see why, if you were ESPN, you may want the league to take a stake in you. There's no more popular programming in the United States than NFL football. If you now have a deal where the NFL has a minority stake in you, there is a built-in investment in your company, and ESPN will continue to bid on sports rights for years to come. If you know the league owns 10% of you, or whatever this may end up being, assuming a deal gets done, you may have a little bit more comfort than other media companies that the NFL is going to take care of you.
So, can I just ask one point on that, Alex? Would this be a one-and-done deal for the NFL, or would they potentially want to take a stake in anybody who is programming NFL rights? I mean, is this the type of deal? It sounds like it originated from ESPN's idea, but if I was the NFL, I'd think, great, I want an ownership stake in Peacock, in Amazon, with anybody who's actually doing us. Maybe the idea is you first have to offer us a stake in the company in order to get part of these bidding rights.
Well, we'll see. Certainly, I think that's unknown at this point, Becky. But here's a couple caveats, I would say. One, the NFL did not want to run these NFL media assets anymore. So they've been looking for a buyer for them for years. So I think that was sort of the carrot here, which made this to be somewhat of a one-off, where the NFL was looking to unload assets, and that was sort of their end of this transaction. That may not be a repeatable dynamic with all these other bidders. Two, we don't really know who the bidders are going to be. I mean, the NFL has an opt-out clause in its media rights deal after the 2029 season. If you can fast forward and tell me who are going to be the major bidders for NFL packages, then you're more of a fortune teller than I am. I mean, I'm not even sure what media companies are going to be around in 2029. Now, I would imagine Amazon will probably be around, and I would think Netflix would play a part in that deal, considering they've shown interest in bite-sized NFL games such as Christmas moving forward. But beyond that, in terms of the legacy guys, I'm not really sure in this, in this world of consolidation. These are kind of shrinking assets. And I suppose that would be one reason that if you're the league, maybe you did have some second thoughts about taking an equity stake in ESPN here. ESPN at its core is still a legacy media company, and that is a company that is a cable company first, and those subscribers are shrinking. So if you're taking an equity valuation in this company, naturally you'd think that the valuation will grow over years. And certainly, depending on which analyst you speak to, you don't always get the same answer with ESPN.
Right. Alex, my question actually is maybe slightly different, which is if, in fact, ESPN and the NFL are in business together, and obviously they are already, and so they have a vested interest in each other's success to some degree, does it change the calculus when it comes to bidding for rights in the future, which is to say that ESPN either wouldn't have to bid as high? Does it change the calculus for other bidders? So if you're an NFL owner, are you saying to yourself, this is helpful, this is hurtful? Does it change the dynamic? Because people say, well, we're already attached to these people, and it's not, we can't just drop them because if we drop them completely, guess what? They're going to fall on the floor.
I mean, I think the answer will be in the details of this deal on that question, but that is certainly the question to ask, right? Like if you were to throw out 3 columns in terms of what we know now of winners and losers. I would put ESPN as a winner in this deal because it gets to cozy up to the most valuable programming there is and probably the most existential programming to its future. I'd put the league somewhere in the middle there because it certainly makes sense to have a relationship with the largest U.S. all sports media company there is. Then I would put the other media companies as the superficial losers here because I think you're right, Andrew. Like, we don't know what this means for future bidding, and it could be bad news for all the other media bidders.
Well,
so
I'm just saying. To me, maybe I'm missing. Maybe I don't understand. But let's say Google, YouTube decides we're going big on football. Big. We're going to go. We really want to own the entire. We're going to make a big bid for all of football. Well, that would be very difficult if you own 10% of ESPN for the NFL owners. All of a sudden, it changes the calculus as to whether you go with the higher bid, because the higher bid kills the valuation of the other thing you own.
Yeah, so two real quick thoughts on that, because I know we're short on time. One, look, the NFL has many packages. So you're talking about some sort of hypothetical world where there would be like one bid for all the games or something like that. In that scenario, you'd have to imagine that the NFL would look to unload the 10% stake in ESPN to move on. So it's not like this is some sort of lifetime bond they have. They would likely sell out in that case. But I do think it's very unlikely that we're moving away from a world where there are multiple media packages. That is how the NFL has done such a wonderful job of monetizing its revenue over the past several decades. There's 5, 6 different NFL packages you can get. I would imagine that's going to at least be the case for its next media rights deal.
Alex, I know we are out of time, and I'm going to get killed by the producers, and this is a close-to-home question. There's a report today, though, about NBC wanting to build a sports channel, this after starting a sports channel that they ultimately ended. Do you know anything about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the report is true from the Wall Street Journal. Look, I think you should think of it a little bit differently than most cable channels that have been made. Of course, NBC Universal just spun out almost all of its cable channels, our company included, CNBC. So you'd think, why are they in the cable channel business now? They seemingly want out. Well, this is going to be a vehicle where it can simulcast many of the games that are already on Peacock. So in essence, basically, it's just saying, look, if you want to stay in the cable bundle, like, we want you to stay in the cable bundle too. Here's access to a lot of the other games so you don't have to buy Peacock in addition. And look, if you do want to opt out of the cable bundle, then subscribe to Peacock. And by the way, NBC just jacked up its price on Peacock significantly. So I think that's the rationale there.